Let's start in China. Chinese President Xi Jinping showcased his country's military force with the leaders of Russia and North Korea by his side. Fighter jets, tanks, thousands of troops marching across Tiananmen Square in Beijing to mark the 80th anniversary of the end of World War II.
Really, I think he doth protest too much. I see these things as a sign of weakness. I really do. Look at our military hardware. We haven't fought a war in like a generation, but we know how to dance down the streets. I said Trump's in Washington is a sign of weakness. If you got it, you don't have to show it.
You don't have to show it. That's right. This was one of China's most elaborate military parades ever, featuring some of the country's weaponry, hypersonic missiles, and drones all on display. The leaders of 26 countries attended the event, including Russian President Vladimir Putin and North Korea's Kim Jong-un. The United States had no representative there. The Washington Post notes the parade highlights Xi's desire for China to be seen as a formidable military adversary for the United States and one that is building a coalition of world leaders who can help him challenge Western global leadership. In a speech to thousands of spectators, Xi claimed the world is facing a choice between peace or war, with Putin at his side, ironically.
Peace or war. Now look at our weapons.
So
and here's Vladimir Putin, like launching the first invasion in Europe since Vladimir Putin launched the last, since Vladimir Putin launched the last.
You're saying this with a smile, but go ahead.
I mean, come on.
And Kim Jong-un threatened South Korea every day across his border. Xi adding the Chinese people, quote, firmly stand on the right side of history. President Trump weighed in on the parade as it got underway, writing on Truth Social, quote, please give my warmest regards to Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un as you conspire against the United States of America.
Keeps them thinking. They're up on the same way. Does he congratulate? Is he not?
There's a twist. Following the event, Putin and Kim held their own meeting in which Putin thanked the North Korean leader for providing soldiers to fight in the war with Ukraine.
This is straight out of Austin Powers, except, of course, the stakes are
a little higher. Let's go to Beijing, where we find NBC News international correspondent Janice Mackey-Frayer. Janice, what's it been like there today?
Rich in optics, a lot of symbolism with this display of ambition as Xi Jinping seeks to stoke national pride here, but also show that China's clout is growing. Some of the PLA's most advanced weapons were on display. We saw new hypersonic anti-ship missiles, underwater drones, what's being billed as the world's most powerful laser. The event commemorating the 80th anniversary of the end of World War II, but there is this effort here to reshape the post-war narrative around China's contributions. But as you were saying, just as significant for Xi, all of the leaders who came to watch, Russia, North Korea, Iran, nearly 24, mostly authoritarian countries. Kim Jong-un grabbing the spotlight as soon as that armored train rolled into town. He brought his daughter as well, seen as a potential successor, and immediately thanked Xi for his hospitality. Vladimir Putin has been here for days after hand-holding with India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi at a summit, going for a car ride, embracing Xi. All of this getting attention in Washington. As you mentioned, President Trump posting to Truth Social just as the parade was getting underway. Perhaps imagining that image there of the leaders watching the parade unfold from the balcony above that iconic Mao portrait in Tiananmen Square. We were there among hundreds of foreign media waiting to get that image of Xi, Putin, and Kim together. And right as the parade was going to start, we were informed that we weren't allowed to film it. We could certainly take pictures of all of the military hardware that was on parade in front of us on Chang'an Avenue, but we could not turn the cameras in the direction of Xi Jinping and those leaders on the balcony. And that was one small example of the security precautions and restrictions that were being rolled out for this event. Roads were closed. There was a 6-square-mile area around the square that had been in total lockdown for the past couple of days. Entire neighborhoods where people, if they have a window that happens to look out onto the parade route, they're forbidden to look out the window. They have to stay at home, and they were encouraged to watch it on television. All of this for a 70-minute show by Xi Jinping, but one that obviously carried very high stakes for him.
All right, NBC's Janice Mackey-Frayer reporting live.
Thank you.
from Beijing following the optics there. Thank you so much. They showed, Willie, the world's largest laser. Today, Kim Jong-un will show sharks with lasers on their heads.
Okay.
It's right out of the movie.
It's right out of the movie. Let's bring in right now staff writer at The Atlantic, Ann Applebaum. And Ann, you know, I occasionally have people asking me to write books, right? I'm going to use your publisher next time because I've got to say the little party that they threw in Beijing to launch the paperback version of Autocracy, Inc., The Dictators Who Want to Run the World.
I mean,
it's pretty good.
Now that's marketing.
That is
and
marketing.
Hats off to you. But it also seems, given what we just reported, that we're a long way from the ambitions of an outcome in Alaska. How would you describe what we're seeing now on the world stage and what is going on with the world order?
What we're seeing is what I wrote about in my book, which is that the world's autocracies, regardless of their ideologies or their geography or their backgrounds, are beginning to make common cause. And the thing that they are consolidating around is their dislike of us. And by us, I mean people who use the language of rule of law, people who talk about transparency, people who talk about accountability, about human rights. All of those things are dangerous for them. Those are things that appeal to their own oppositions. And so they're working harder than ever to fight back. We aren't powerless. The United States is also part of a huge international coalition, if it wants to be, of countries who believe in rights and who believe in the rule of law. And we're able to fight back. But at the moment, they're demonstrating their consolidation, as you say.
You know, Richard, it's just a couple of things. First of all, it's important for people to keep a perspective on things. The United States and the EU, along with Japan, Australia, our allies, probably have a combined GDP of around 65, 70 trillion dollars a year. China has 20, 25. Russia, a GDP smaller than the size of Texas. Forget about California. California has twice the GDP of Russia, and North Korea, they can't even keep their lights turned on at night. So you look at that, you also look at our military. Our military, obviously, we've seen how weak Russia's military is. But that said, Ann's book, which I read when it first came out, predicted all of this. She talked about how they don't care. The Soviet Union used to care what people would think of them. They would go in the United Nations and lie every day because they thought they had to save political face. Now, as Ann said, if you run Belarus, you can oppress everybody there. Doesn't matter. There will be no revolution that will bring down the power because they'll get help from all the other autocrats across the globe. And isn't that exactly what we're seeing playing out right now in Beijing?
I think that's half the story, that they are there for one another.
What's the other story?
The other side,
part of the story.
We're making it easy on them.
No.
Ann referred to the fact that we have this great network of alliances. That, you made the point that we represent 2/3 of the world economy. But what are we doing? We alienate India. So India shows up at this confab. We had one of the building blocks of American foreign policy, which was to bring India closer to us, to put pressure on China.
Yeah.
So much of that. We put tariffs against many of our allies. We've introduced great uncertainty into whether we're actually there for them.
So are you saying if we're united together, shoulder to shoulder with our allies, and there's nothing these countries can do, but if we divide, united we stand, divided we fall?
Both internationally, if we divide, and also domestically. The consensus about America's role in the world. So, where are we? We talk on the show all the time about Ukraine. Why aren't we doing more there? Vladimir Putin shows up here in China, and he gets all these people wrapping their arms around him, including, by the way, the Chinese, who have been helping him consistently. Why aren't we doing more to pressure him in terms of putting sanctions on him or giving more help to Ukraine? Why aren't we doing more for Taiwan? So, yes, half the story is what they're doing. The other half of the story we can control, is why aren't we doing more to help ourselves and to strengthen ourselves?
And why aren't Trump's words and intentions, President Trump's, being heeded by Vladimir Putin? But what happened in Alaska? that was so destructive that we've ended up here with everything Trump said he was going to do to try and help Ukraine and end this war? It seems worse.
I think the question also, Willie, is now with the Senate back in, will those Republican voices watching this, watching these autocrats, Autocracy Inc., gather to plan, to plan our destruction, will the United States Senate finally step up and pass that sanctions bill that I think 85% of the Senate supports?
And what pressure can they apply to President Trump? The 2 weeks, he said, you have 2 weeks, Vladimir Putin, to reach a deal. The 2 weeks are up.
They're up.
Where's the deal? And Ann, if you look at what happened in Anchorage with the rolling out of the red carpet for Vladimir Putin, Donald Trump thought perhaps that flattery could win him some type of a peace deal. He even talked about a bilateral meeting that he now concedes will not happen between Zelensky and Putin. So what is the message as you watch these images this morning of Putin standing shoulder to shoulder with Xi and Kim Jong-un? What is the message they hope President Trump receives?
So Putin has made his choice. He's made it clear that he feels more comfortable with those group of other autocrats who are indeed helping him win the war. The North Koreans are providing soldiers and weapons. Chinese are providing components and spare parts for the Russian defense industry. Those are the people who help him win the war. And the United States, in lots of ways that we don't see, in terms of funding for foreign broadcasting and funding Russian language broadcasting, in terms of help for Ukrainian military, in terms of relations with our allies, looks to the Russians like it's moving back. And unless we reverse that view, unless we are able to put pressure on them, then they'll take us seriously again.
Yeah, I was watching a picture, and TJ, if you can put it up again, I was watching a picture of Xi and Putin walking next to each other. And I'm sitting there thinking, does the United States really want these autocrats to determine the outcome of Ukraine? And by determining the outcome of Ukraine, and determining the outcome of Eastern Europe and possibly Central Europe? Because, as you know all too well, Vladimir Putin didn't stop in Georgia. He didn't stop in Ukraine. He didn't stop in Crimea. He's not going to stop in Ukraine this time. He'll go into Poland. He'll go in, to Lithuania, to Latvia, to Estonia. Like, what are the stakes at hand if we as a nation don't do anything to push back against these autocrats?
So Putin has actually himself said anywhere where there has ever been a Russian soldier is potentially Russia. And I have to tell you, that's not just Eastern Europe. That includes Berlin. And if you go back to, and which of course Putin remembers, he was a Soviet official in Berlin, a KGB officer in Berlin in the 1980s. Of course, if you go back even farther, there were once Russians in Paris. So, this is somebody who has limitless ambition. He will go as far as he's allowed to go. His economy is weak. His army is not what it was meant to be. He's still stuck on the, in the Donetsk, which he was meant to have conquered 3 years ago. But he retains those ambitions. And if he is allowed to win, if he's allowed to take territory, he will then launch further attacks. As long as he can, as long as he's allowed to do it, he will. And the one thing that can stop him is the thing we've just been discussing that Richard Haass was talking about, the alliance of democracies, American, Asian, European, international. We are able to stop him if we want to.
Steph Ryder for The Atlantic, and Applebaum, thank you. And if you want to understand what's going on right now,
that's the book. This
is the book to read, Autocracy Inc. It explains how all the dots connect. And again, Ann, kudos to your publisher. That was, we did not see lasers on sharks, but we saw everything.
Get that for your Truman book.
Short of that. No, this is amazing.
The book's out in paperback now. Thank you, Ann, very much. And still ahead on Morning Joe, a federal judge rules the Trump administration violated the law when it deployed the National Guard to Los Angeles.